Welcome to our on-demand training on how to improve the accessibility of your digital files. In other words, we're focusing on what's often called digital accessibility, making sure that the documents, presentations, and other digital content you create can be used and understood by everyone. For example, adding headings, alt text, and proper reading order helps people who use screen readers navigate and understand the content more easily. Digital accessibility is very important. We see examples of physical accessibility in ramps, braille, automatic doors, elevators, things like that. We're all online, so digital accessibility is also very important in that realm. You might think of things like captions, for example. In this workshop, we won't be talking about that because overall it's kind of broad in showing, but captions are important. I know that there are a lot of automatic captions that are used nowadays in programs, which is very helpful. In this on-demand training, we are going to identify accessibility issues, describe how they can affect users, use built-in accessibility checkers in Microsoft and Blackboard Ally, and then hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to create documents that are accessible for all people, not just students. In this on-demand training, we'll focus on headings, image descriptions or alternative text, tables and links, text readability, and PDF files. Like I said, we won't talk about captions, but they are pretty important. So first, let us go find some files. Let's go to NDSU IDC Workshop Files. The first link is our Google Sites page. Under General Workshops and then under Universal Design and Digital Accessibility, we'll just select Improve Accessibility of your digital files. When I click that, then we'll go to the download icon in the top right. Then we have a download pop-up. I'll just open this and then extract all. And then I'll hit the extract button. And these are the documents we will be using for the on-demand training. So the first thing we will talk about is headings. Headings help create a structure to a document. Headings are used in documents like a thesis, for example. They should be used in all things, like textbooks as well. Even as a sighted person, headings are very helpful because you can see what the title is and what the next section is. And for screen readers, headers are helpful because it explains what the user is going to be interacting with. Let us go into our files and select COM 261, Syllabus COM 261. I will enable editing at the top, and it looks like this is a web development syllabus. To apply headers, I'm just going to select COM 261 Introduction to Web Development, and then in the top, in the Home tab, we have Styles. I'm going to select Heading 1. If you don't like this blue font color or the Cambria font, you don't have to keep that. You can change the color and the font. So hopefully this won't deter you from using headings, because I don't really like how they look by themselves, but you can format them, which is very helpful. So COM 261 Introduction to Web Development I set as heading 1. Description, you guessed it, is heading 2. The next heading 2 would be instructor information. The next heading 2 would be course summary, course policies, student study tips, learning resources, code of conduct, etc. Text resources, readings, and supplies would be heading 2. Supplies, however, would be heading 3 because it's under heading 2. Anything that would be under heading 3 that is a heading would be heading 4. So this is a list. It's not a heading, so we can keep it normal. But if we got more specific, then you would make it heading 4. If I was making a document about the history of sandwiches, the history would be heading 1. Heading 2 would be bread. So that would be heading 2. Now we're going to talk about bread. Maybe what kind of bread. We want to know the history of wheat bread. So that would be heading 3. And then you have your text, your regular text in between there. So if there was whole wheat bread, that would be heading 4 because it's under heading 3, which is talking about wheat bread, which is talking about bread, which is talking about the history, if that makes sense. So we talked about headings. Now we are going to talk about image descriptions or alternative text. Writing good alternative text is important. What you see is not everyone's reality. Image descriptions help a screen reader to read it to people who cannot see the image and who are blind or low vision. Alternative text is good for non-decorative images. If you have an image that is purely just for the user's enjoyment, it kind of looks nice, it doesn't add anything, maybe it's just like an arrow or a swirly arrow, then there should be no alternative text and it should just be marked as decorative. It should be kind of short and descriptive, and you really shouldn't do image of or photo of because the screen reader will notify the user that it is indeed a photo. So now we are going to add alternative text in Word. Let's go open up our files and go to Word doc with image. So here's our image, just like we saw in the PowerPoint slide. I'm going to enable editing at the top. When I look at this, I just see North Dakota State University front gate, and I'm going to apply that. So to do that, I will right-click, go down to Edit Alt Text. Depending on your version of Word, it might be a little different, but generally, if you right-click, there should be an option to do alternative text. I want to name this North Dakota State University front gate. If it was decorative, I would mark it as decorative with this option so it's not red, but the image means something in this hypothetical context. And depending on the context, the image description might be different. If I was talking about the flowers, for example, maybe I just say colorful flowers in front of and behind the North Dakota State University front gate, maybe talk about what specific flowers there are. If I was talking about the trees, I'd do specific trees behind the North Dakota State University front gate, things like that. It's also best practice to not use acronyms and just type out the whole thing so it's understandable to everyone. Next, we are going to be talking about formatting tables. Just like with regular documents, tables should have a header row. So kind of a heading explaining what it's about. So week and assignment is the header row. Just like with images, we would add alternative text to the table, but instead of using alternative text for each cell, it's just generally what the table is about. Avoiding blank cells is helpful as well because you can skip around and people might get lost. They don't know what they're doing, where they're going, and what is going on. Screenshots of a table should not be used because you would have to provide alternative text for every single cell, and that might just be awful for you. So it's best practice to just use a built-in table in your program. Let's go back to our Word doc with image and make a quick table. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'll do a 2 by 8. Just like with our PowerPoint slide, I'm just going to type week in the first cell and assignment in the other cell. And then I'll do week 1, assignment 1, week 2, assignment 2, week 3, assignment 3, you get it. So pretend that the rest of these are filled in because, like I said, we want to avoid blank cells. But for this example, they're going to be blank. It's also best practices to not use merged cells because that can also cause confusion. If I were to merge week and assignment, I'll go to Layout, Merge Cells. It seems like, okay, this is week, this is assignment, but if somebody was using a screen reader, it would change the reading order and it would get messed up and people would get confused, and we want to keep it as understandable as possible for people. So I'll just Control Z. Now we are going to add alternative text and a header row to this table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the table, right-click, go to Table Properties, and for the title, let's just do Weekly Assignments. For the description, we will do Weekly Assignments for Communications 261, and hit OK. So we did the alternative text. We also want to tell Word that week and assignment is our header row. To do that, we will select it, go to Layout, and select Repeat Header Rows. So week 3 and assignment 3 is on the next page of the table, but when I hit Repeat Header Rows, week and assignment will jump to the next page. So if you have a really long table, people will know that week and assignment is the header row. They don't have to keep going up at the top. It's very helpful. So next is text readability and reading order, which seems pretty self-explanatory, but something you should try sometime is to use the tab key on a website to navigate it. Depending on the website, it might be pretty easy to navigate, but on other websites, unfortunately, they are pretty much almost impossible to navigate, and it is required for websites to be able to navigate. So reading order is important to get where you need to go. In Word, you can kind of do this with images. It's not text, but it is reading order. So I'll select Word doc with image. So if I select this image, go to Layout Options, this kind of rainbow icon, it's automatically going to be in line with text, which is good. That means it is part of the text, it is not floating on top of our Word document, it's not behind any text, it's in line with text. If it was in front of text, that means a screen reader will not read it at all. If this image was important, then it would not be read unless it was in line with the text. Now we are moving on to links. With links, it's good to use concise and meaningful text and give a title to it. Generally, we don't want to say, click here for more info because the internet is a scary place and we want to tell people where they are going. Using URLs, for example, if a screen reader would read this, it would be https://webaim.org/resources/contrast checker. If it was a very long URL, it would just be a nightmare to read through, so it's always a good idea to give a title so people can navigate to it from there. I'm going to find the TechSmith website. I'm going to select the link. It's a very long link. I'll select it, go back to our Word doc with image page, and we want to say visit the TechSmith website. So I'm going to select our text, right-click, and select the link. So our text to display is visit the TechSmith website, and the address is going to be the pasted link that we copied. And I'll hit OK. So now at TechSmith website, when I press Control and when I press Control on the keyboard and click it, that is where we will go. Making the source document accessible will save you a lot of time. If you convert a Word document to a PDF and there are some accessibility issues, it can be very difficult to do it in PDFs because there are a lot of things like tags that you have to do manually. If you just make it accessible from the start, you will do yourself a favor. What we talked about today is a lot of information, and I know it can be very overwhelming, but there are resources at your fingertips in Word and other Microsoft applications like PowerPoint. So let's go back to our Word document. Let's go to syllabus Com 261. Actually, let's go to poor contrast example. I will enable editing, go to review, and under accessibility, above accessibility, I will select this check accessibility icon. And it looks like we have a warning. It says there is hard to read contrast. So let's click that. It's going to highlight prerequisites, which is in red. Red against white is very hard to read, especially if you're colorblind, you wouldn't be able to see it very easily. So when I click down this drop-down arrow, it's giving me options to change the font color and the page color, which is very helpful. So let's do black. I'll do the same for office hours, change the font color. If you had an image without alternative text, then it would tell you, hey, this image does not have alternative text, you should add some. We talked about making the source document accessible. This is especially important with things like PDFs. If you were to scan a book, I think most scanners have optical character recognition. That means that it's going to look at the image essentially and turn it into text. Optical character recognition is important because if you scan the file as an image, you wouldn't be able to access it unless there was alternative text. But remember, alternative text should be short, and writing alternative text for a whole PDF would be awful, so optical character recognition is very nice, or known as OCR. If you're unable to revise your document for some reason, maybe you don't have access to your original, you can always provide an alternative document, provide an alternative means of learning. That is a principle of universal design for learning, which gives everybody options to learn. Let's look at a PDF. I'm just going to select scanned PDF example, and then let's open scan OCR PDF example. So let's look at scanned PDF example, Give Earth a Chance, the Environmental Movement, and the 60s. So there is a read aloud option at the top. If I click that, it is not going to read out loud because there is no text here. There is only an image. So if I try to select it, I can't select any text. It is just an image. Let's go to scanned OCR PDF example. So if I try to select this, memory uptake and metabolism of amino acids. If I select that, I can copy it and I can paste it. I can read it. A screen reader can read it. If I get a screen reader to read it, it will read it.
On lasting one response to Modian. Tie-ins for M. Tinel say.
We did talk about making the source document accessible. We kind of have this stuff on the side, which is being read first, and then it's going to go over to the right. After reading to the left, there's this extra words that don't make sense. So it's always nice to be mindful of the side space and make the original document accessible. Just like with the Microsoft Accessibility Checker, there is also an accessibility checker in Blackboard Ultra. If you're a faculty or staff member using Blackboard, you'll see an accessibility score for each uploaded file, as well as an overall course accessibility report. The accessibility checker in Blackboard Ultra is called Ally. So if you are an instructor in a course and you have documents, then you will be able to see these gear icons. It'll say this document is accessible or this document is not accessible, and students also have the option to get their documents in alternative formats. Maybe you provide a PDF, and then students will be able to have the option to listen to it with an MP3. So we saw the gear icons earlier. Those are only seen by instructors. The color and percentage indicate the accessibility score, and we are going to look into that. The alternative format icon, this kind of A here, both students and instructors can see this. Just click the icon and it will open the content of your choice. So let's go to an Ultra course. So this is an Ultra course that I am an instructor in. So I'm an instructor, I can see both the gear icon and the alternative formats icon. So it says this accessibility score is perfect. Let's look at it. So it says perfect. This document has a perfect accessibility score, although further improvements may still be possible. Keep up the good work. And then if we go to scanned OCR PDF example, it's going to say the accessibility score is low. So this PDF is untagged, and we can say what this means. So it's going to say, what is a tagged PDF? You can go through and follow the instructions. A tagged PDF is essential for students with visual impairments. It allows for easier navigation, and it adapts to screen size. Let's look at this alternative formats icon, and let's open Syllabus Com 261 in MP3. Alright, it has downloaded. Let's listen to it.
Begin heading level 4, Com 261, Introduction to Web Devices.
And that concludes our on-demand training. Thank you so much for watching.